Throughout the Cold War, both the Soviet Union and Western powers relied heavily on tanks to defend themselves against potential threats. However, their approach to tank warfare was vastly different. The Cold War was a global conflict that lasted from the end of World War II in 1945 until the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991. It was a period of tension and conflict between the two superpowers of the time, the United States and the Soviet Union.
The Cold War shaped the world in many ways and had a significant impact on global politics, the economy and society in the Soviet Union, Europe and the United States. Hello, I'm Alex Garner and welcome to my channel. If you like tanks and other military history, be sure to like and subscribe. But anyway.
The Cold War was characterised by a series of proxy wars and geopolitical conflicts. The Korean War and the Vietnam War were two significant military conflicts that emerged during this time. The Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962 was a particularly tense moment, with the world on the brink of nuclear war. The arms race between the United States and the Soviet Union was another defining feature of the Cold War, with both sides developing increasingly advanced nuclear weapons. The Soviet Union placed a great emphasis on the number of tanks, believing that the sheer numbers could overwhelm any enemy force. Soviet tanks were designed to be simple, reliable and cheap to produce, allowing for mass production. Their doctrine also emphasised the use of tanks in coordinated formations with other armoured vehicles and infantry, with the goal of achieving breakthroughs in enemy lines. In contrast, Western powers focused on the quality of their tanks, prioritising technological advancements such as improved armour, firepower and mobility.
They also emphasised the importance of individual tank crews, providing extensive training and specialisation for tank personnel. The Western approach aimed to use tanks to provide direct support to infantry forces rather than using the tank as the main striking force.
These differing approaches to tank warfare reflected the wider military strategies of these two superpowers during the Cold War. The Soviet Union sought to use its large military force to intimidate and deter potential adversaries, while the West relied on technological advancements and a highly trained military to maintain a balance of power. In this video, we're going to explore these differences in more detail and examine how they influenced the development of tanks and changes in military tactics during the Cold War. So anyway, let's get started.
The Soviet Union was one of the leading military powers during the Cold War, and its tank doctrine played a crucial role in its military strategy. The Soviet Union developed a unique and highly effective approach to tank warfare that relied on the use of large numbers of tanks to just overwhelm the enemy.
The Soviet Union recognised the importance of tanks early on and began developing its own tank forces in the 1920s. By the time World War II broke out, the Soviet Union had developed a formidable tank fleet that played a crucial role in its victory over Germany. However, the lessons of World War II also revealed weaknesses in the Soviet tank doctrine, and so the Soviet Union began developing a new approach to tank warfare during the Cold War. The Soviet Union developed a doctrine of deep battle, which emphasized the use of artillery and tanks to penetrate deep into enemy lines. This doctrine was based on the idea that by attacking the enemy from multiple directions and overwhelming their defences, the Soviet Union could quickly and decisively defeat the enemy. Soviet tanks were designed to be heavily armoured and heavily armed, with a focus of firepower over speed and mobility. The Soviet Union also developed a strategy of tank warfare which prioritised surprise and speed. Soviet tank units were designed to move quickly and attack enemy positions without warning. The Soviet Union also developed a doctrine of tank armies. These were large formations of tanks designed to operate independently of other units. These tank armies were intended to be used in offensive operations with the goal of breaking through the enemy lines and rapidly advancing into enemy territory.
During the Cold War, the United States, as a leading NATO power, developed a unique approach to tank warfare that emphasised mobility, flexibility and the ability to operate in a variety of different environments.
The United States recognised the importance of tanks early on and played a major role in their development during the Second World War. Following the war, the United States continued to develop and refine its tank forces with a particular emphasis on improving its mobility and versatility.
But on top of that, Americans insisted on the best possible training and coordination of their crew members. In short, this was the core of the tank doctrine.
The smallest manoeuvre unit in a tank company is a tank platoon. The platoon, which includes a total of 4 main battle tanks divided into 2 groups with 2 tanks each, is set up to fight as a single unit. Individual tanks are typically not deployed by tank platoons, instead they are generally operate as a unit or in groups. The primary goal of the tank platoon is to engage and eliminate the enemy. On the battlefield, the platoon's capacity to move, shoot, communicate and offer armoured protection is crucial. In order to assist the company's team or troop mission, it moves, attacks, protects and completes other crucial tasks.
The platoon uses fire, manoeuvre and shock effects in conjunction with other manoeuvre elements, combat support and combat service support assets to complete its assigned duties. It can carry out long-lasting operations against pretty much any level of risk when appropriately supported.
The tank platoon must be well trained, skillfully led and highly motivated in order to endure and win in battle. The velocity and intensity of maneuver combat must be reflected in the crew's aggressiveness and tactics. Their actions in an unwelcome territory with the enemy surrounding them must be executed according to the training that the crew has mastered.
The British approach to tank warfare during the Cold War emphasised the importance of combined military arms and the ability to operate in a variety of different environments. British tanks were designed to be versatile and capable of operating in a load of different roles, from reconnaissance to direct fire support. The British also placed a strong emphasis on training and readiness. British tank crews were highly trained and they practiced consistently to ensure they were prepared for any scenario.
The emphasis on training and readiness was seen as critical to the success of British tank forces. In addition to its focus on combined arms and training, the British also placed a strong emphasis on innovation and technology. The British were pioneers in the development of advanced tank technology such as composite armour and stabilised gun platforms. The French approach to tank warfare during the Cold War emphasised the importance of speed and mobility. French tanks were designed to be the fast and manoeuvrable, capable of quickly exploiting gaps in enemy lines and launching rapid counterattacks. French tank doctrine also placed a strong emphasis on combined arms with coordination of tank forces with other types of military units.
The French also focused on the use of small, highly trained crews for their tanks. These crews were trained in a list of different skills including vehicle maintenance, logistics and battlefield tactics. The French believed that this approach would result in more effective tank units that were better able to respond to changing battlefield conditions.
Americans believed that conventional ground warfare in Europe during the Cold War was dominated by armoured warfare. Although the use of light and heavy tanks were largely abandoned, the medium tank designs evolved into heavier models due to an increase in armour and larger main weapons, leading to the creation of the main battle tank, which combined the majority of different types of tanks during World War II.
The majority of US armoured doctrine was defensive and focused on using nuclear weapons as a deterrent. Although the majority of NATO countries had a sizable number of American-designed tanks in their fleet during the start of the Cold War, there was a considerable dispute among major NATO countries on the design of upcoming mainline battle tanks.
Both the United States and Germany experimented, for example, with the missile-armed MBT-70, eventually giving it up. Up until the 1980s, when the gas turbine power M1 Abrams supplanted the M60 main battle tank, the M26 Pershing established the basis for American armour. The Centurion tank from World War II was also kept in use by the British Army. It was quite successful and wasn't completely replaced until the 1970s. In the 1960s, the West Germans decided to make their own tank, and in the 1970s they unveiled the Leopard 1, a somewhat lighter design that matched with the German doctrine that prioritised speed above protection. The French AMX tank series, which originated from the same initial collaboration effort as the Leopard 1, similarly prioritised manoeuvrability over armour. The most sophisticated main battle tanks in the West by the 21st century were constructed with robust engines, big 120mm cannons and composite armour.
The pre-war Soviet tank doctrine has had a significant impact on today's Russian tank doctrine, which is an element of the larger Soviet deep operation theory. The shock force and the maneuver force are the two armoured forces specified in this doctrine. Heavy tanks, infantry light support and combined arm units make for the shock force. The aim of the shock force is to break through the enemy defences and establish an effective strategic point for the maneuver force.
The maneuver force is a motorised strike force made up of armoured infantry and medium tanks. Together with the modern airborne troops, it functions in depth as strategic cavalry. These troops were part of a cavalry-like mechanised units that were frequently used during the offensive phase of the second half of World War II and deployed to tank armies.
Many people thought that the atomic bomb had made conventional weapons useless in the 1950s, making the Pride doctrine completely ineffective. The Soviet Union eventually did switch back to manoeuvre warfare after a decade of the nuclear warfare doctrine.
The deep battle doctrine predominated Soviet military doctrine in the 1970s, and it still does today. New air assault brigades and battalions were formed to support operational manoeuvre groups which were designed to replace infantry mechanised support. Russia continues to follow a policy that defines two tank forces. The shock force is made up of a mechanised combined arms army, while the manoeuvre force is made up of tank armies with highly concentration numbers of tanks. However, all tank armies were disbanded as a result of the collapse of the USSR. The Soviet Union relied on quantity, simplicity and mass production of tanks, with the use of complex tank attacks manoeuvres dating back to 1938, when the Soviets and the Japanese armies first met on the Mongolian highlands. While Western powers focus on quality, prioritising technological advancements and individual tank crews, which proved to be very effective during the Gulf War and Operation Desert Storm in 1991.
Thank you so much for watching this video, guys. If you did enjoy the video, please do like and subscribe. My name is Alex Garner and I'll see you in the next video.